So today is week 10, and we've got a bunch more work to do with our lowballer shopping cart. So let's fire up the application, get it running. We'll see exactly where we left off, and we'll carry on. So last week, I believe we could add items to the cart. I'm going to also connect to my database with Management Studio. So I'm going to load my project and get it running, as well as load Management Studio so we can have a look at the database. Let's try our best not to break things, if at all possible. So we'll have a quick look. Last week we were working with the carts table. And I believe we built the successful add to cart function. Then again, maybe not, because there's nothing in my cart. Okay, well, that's right. All right, well, we'll launch the app. So let's see what happens when I try to shop. So I'll try putting something in my cart. I'll also double check which database I'm using. Oh, okay, I was connected to my local database, that is why. So if we look in here, we should see some shopping cart data from last week. Right, there we go. So we were saving cart data. If our user was logged in, we were using their email address to attach the cart items. If they were anonymous, we were using the GUID class to generate a random string, was basically attached to the user's session. So here is an anonymous user. If I add something new to my cart, it should save to my carts table and then redirect me to the cart page that shows me the current contents of my cart. So this is kind of where we left off. If I run this query again, I'll get a new record down at the bottom. So this is how we left things. If you're behind, code's on GitHub, although you will need to connect it up to a database of your own. It's connected to my own local database right now. So this was as far as we got. For the moment, I think I'm going to remove the edit. We should have a delete from cart. So we have this delete button. If we open up our cart.cshtml view. So the edit and delete links were scaffolded when we built this page last week because we used the list template. I'm going to get rid of my edit link. I also want to change the action here. Rather than calling the action delete, I want to change this to a method we're going to write called remove from cart. So this will remove this item from the cart table and reload the page. If we were using Angular, it could do it auto reload, we're going to actually have to do a full page refresh. So in our shop controller, we've got an add to cart method. We have a cart method that populates this page we want to remove from cart method. It gets invoked when the user clicks this. We don't need a remove from cart view because this method's just going to remove something from the database and reload the existing view. So I'm going to go to my shop controller and I want to generate this remove from cart method. It'll take in a parameter called ID, which will give us this primary key so we know which item to delete from the cart table. So go back to my shop controller and we want to build a method called remove from cart with an integer parameter called ID, because that matches the link, the delete link in our view. So we're going to look up the selected item. And we'll pass in the ID. So we're either going to get a matching object back or we'll get a null. We could handle the error that we get we pass in an ID we don't need, but it doesn't really matter. If we get an invalid ID, we'll just reload the page. We don't really need to do anything. So now we can call remove with our cart model. We remove the item, and we commit that change to the database. And then we just want to reload the cart page. So we'll just redirect by calling the cart method again. That'll reload the cart view. Yes, but you'd need to use some kind of front-end framework. You would need Ajax or React or Angular or something like that. With purely back-end code, no. So I'll redirect to the cart method up above, which will repopulate the view. So I'll build with that new method, reload. My cart's going to be empty because I've killed my session. So I'm going to put a new item in the cart, and then I should be able to remove it. In fact, maybe I'll put a couple of items in the cart, and then I'll remove one. We should also see our total get updated when that item is removed. Question? Josh, did you have a question? Okay. You're just waving hello. So I'm going to put two items in the cart, remove one of them, and I want to make sure the total gets updated. And the item I click to delete, that it goes away. So I'll put two different items in. and then I'll try to remove one of them. So I have two items. My cart totals $248.99. Remove, it's updated. Now, we didn't add a confirmation. We probably should. There are a lot of people out there who are going to be looking at this potential on a mobile device. They got fat thumbs. They hit delete when they don't mean to. All of a sudden, that item's gone. So we can just use a little bit of JavaScript to add that kind of confirmation on the click event of the cart. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to add an on-click event handler in JavaScript. So we're going to return a method called confirm delete. That method will return a Boolean. If it returns true, the link to remove runs. If it returns false, the operation is canceled and the link doesn't get triggered. So we're going to need to now write this function. We've actually got a file already available for client-side JavaScript. So inside of www.root, we have a JS folder. And in here, Visual Studio gave us a site.js. Write your client-side JavaScript here. So I'm going to create a function with this name and signature. No parameters. It's just going to pop open a little modal JavaScript window with a quest with some text and an OK and a cancel button. The OK button returns true. The cancel button returns false. This is a built-in JavaScript method we're calling. So the same name. So JavaScript has a method called confirm. We pass in a string. That string is the text that will appear on the pop-up, and the method returns a Boolean depending which button the user clicks. But we need to make sure we use return. Otherwise, it will always return true, even if the user clicks cancel. That would be super annoying to a user. Hey, I clicked cancel when I asked the voucher, and then the operation ran anyway. So return is necessary in order to evaluate the Boolean that comes out of this method call. Pardon? We don't, but typically we put JavaScript, that's convention, is the JavaScript logic is broken out into a separate file. You could put a script section right in that view, but then it's also only available only in this view. This is a generic function now, and this site.js is actually included by default in our layout down at the bottom. So you could now attach that to any delete function in any view, and it's globally available. So it wouldn't be wrong to put it directly in the view, but it's more scalable to put it there. If we need to change the function, then we just go here. It's, again, that update will happen everywhere. So if I just refresh my cart page, I'll just click on my link to reload it. Now, if I click delete on this item, I should get that little JS confirmation. So now when I click, well, that didn't work. Why not? Okay, let me start again. And maybe I'll just check that that event handler is here. I'm just going to inspect my element, see if my click handler's in my code. Okay, yes, a on click equals return confirm delete. Okay. So now I get this little pop-up with an OK and a cancel. If I click cancel, the confirm returns false and my item's still in my cart. If I click delete and click OK, it calls remove, refreshes the page, my cart's empty. So nice, simple JavaScript we can use anywhere, any kind of framework, any kind of language. We should never just delete stuff without giving the user a chance to cancel that. So now we want to deal with our next step. The only thing we hadn't done on this page was our checkout. So I click checkout, right now it doesn't take me anywhere. So we want a checkout page, and we can actually use scaffolding to build this. So checkout is going to be modeled on, it's going to be based on our order model. We scaffolded order and order details. We haven't used these tables. We haven't used these at all yet. So here's our order model. We're going to have an order ID, date, information about the user, total amount, and then information about the customer. Yes, if this were a more sophisticated app, we might have separate fields for like a billing customer and a shipping customer. We're not going to do that in our store. There's only one customer with one set of contact info. So we want to scaffold out a checkout page where the customer can give us their information. And then we'll store that in memory, and then we want to move the customer along to pay. And then we're going to use Stripe Payment Gateway for that. So in my controller, I want to make a new method. Called checkout. For now, all this needs to do is return a view. We want to load a checkout form for the user to complete. Any questions so far? Problems, questions? So we can scaffold this view. We don't have to build it from scratch. So if I right-click my method name, we can add a view. So which of these templates do we want to pick? It's not going to be empty. Create, delete, details, edit, or list. We want to ask the user for information. Which one of these would make sense as a template? Yeah, we're going to create. We want to give them a blank form, which the create template is going to do. And which model will this be based on? It's going to have fields from one of these models. So which model has the fields that we need to get from the customer? John? Sorry? Well, let's have a look. So here's the cart table. Product ID, quantity. So do we want, is the user going to give us this information, or do we already have this? Right, we've already got it based on, they've already put the add to cart calls populate this. So we're kind of at the next step of the process. So good guess, but it's not the cart. So which model contains the fields we need to get from the user? We just looked at it. John, you want to guess again? No. Well, here are the tables in the database. Ignore these. The security tables, we've got carts, categories, order details, orders, and products. So which table has the columns that we want to populate? There's order details, there's orders, there's products. What information are we asking for, John?
Well, the product details will already be input into the cart, right?
Yep.
So then you want to create a new order, right?
Right. So it's based on the fields here. So that's going to be the model for our scaffold. We're not creating the order yet, because if they don't pay, we don't want to save the order to the database. But the model for our view is the order model. So it's the create template and the orders model. Our low ballers context, and we're using our layout page. And our view is going to be called checkout. So when the user's in their cart and they click checkout, this is the page they're going to get. So this is mostly going to be a form. It's got a model of orders. It's not IEnumerable. It's not a list of orders. It's a single order. And we've got a form with fields, all the fields from the order model. So if I go back and shop again, this time I'll click checkout and we'll see what this actually gives us. I'm going to put an item in my cart. And now I want to check out. Oh, we may not have made this button active yet. Let's see. Okay, let's go back to our cart page for just a second. Okay, we have a button here, but it doesn't do anything. We never wrote any code for our keep shopping and our checkout buttons. So actually, I could make both of these into anchor tags. I guess I could do it this way, make them server-side. So our ASP controller is shop, our ASP action is checkout. Or you could write them as regular anchor tags, doesn't really matter. I guess I'll rewrite this one as well, ASP control. Yeah, so our keep shopping button calls the index method. Our checkout button calls checkout. So I'll refresh my cart, and then our checkout button should take us to that new view we just scaffolded, where we get a blank form. Just try it out. I'll refresh my cart. So keep shopping now takes me back to the main shopping page, and checkout brings me to this form where we're going to ask the customer for their name and contact info. Now we can simplify this form a bit. What changes should we make to it? It's not quite production ready. Noah? Okay, so we could change the labels. Yep, like first name and last name. Josh? Right. Yep. So order date, user ID, and what other fields should be auto-populated rather than, yeah, the total. Oh, sure. I will take my order for 1 cent, please. Thank you very much. So we're basically going to get rid of those first 3 sections at the top. We'll auto-populate them before we save. And we probably want to put spacing in the first name, last name, and postal code labels. We can also take out this back to list, and we probably want our button to say something other than create. So let's make a few changes to this. So in our checkout view, the first 3 divs from line 16 up to and including line 30, those can come out. The user's not going to supply the date, the user ID, and the total. We're going to set those things programmatically. So line 16 to 30, the first 3 divs with a class of form group, we're going to remove those. So the first div with a class of form group is for the first name. I can also take out this subheading here that says orders. You can just say checkout, I think. My button that says create, I'm going to change that to say next with a couple of arrows. So the user knows this is part of a process. They're going to have to go to the payment. This div at the bottom can come out, this back to list. We'll just get rid of it. Again, scaffolded code we don't need. So my button says next, back to list at the bottom is gone, and the 3 form sections at the top for order date, user ID, and total have been removed. So now my form looks like this. First, last, address, and next. I'm going to put a little instruction up at the top. I'll actually put the H4 tag back, but I'll just put in a message that says all fields are required. And then I want to go to the order model and add some column aliases for all of the 2-part property names, 2 words, first name, last name, and postal code. I want to set up display names that include a space for each one of those. So I'll go to my models and orders, and I'm going to add display name equals attributes. And those have to go above first name, last name, and postal code. So if I build and go back to my checkout page, those labels should get adjusted to look better. Just on those 3 columns, all the other ones are single words. We don't need to adjust the others. Just first name, last name, and postal code. Give it a display name equals attribute, each one. So now if I refresh, we get spaces in the labels. Now there's one other thing we need to do on the back end. Our form looks pretty good. This form is public. We want to make it private. So we're going to let users shop, add to cart, see their cart as an anonymous user. But as soon as they go to checkout, we're going to force them to log in, or if they don't have a login, they're going to have to register and then log in. So you can't go beyond here. We're not letting you do guest checkout. So we can do this relatively simply. How can we control access so this part of our shop controller is private? Where would we go to do that? We can do that with one line of code. How would we make a specific method and view private? Ready? Right. So in the controller, above our checkout method, we can add the authorize annotation. So that will then turn this public method into a private method. We don't care about the role or permission. As long as you're logged in, you can get here. But if you're anonymous, you can't. Now, this is just a missing reference. So if I just accept the hint, it wants me to make a reference to Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.authorization. So if we accept that reference, our annotation will work. And then the only way we can get to the checkout page is to log in. So I'll accept that reference. I'll build. And then I'll start my shopping process again. I'll shop anonymously. But you'll see once I click checkout, it's going to send me to the login screen. So I'm going to go back to shop. We're actually going to need a second checkout method as well. The first one loads the form. This runs the get. We're going to need an HTTP post version to process what happens when the user fills out the form and submits it. So I'll put something in my cart. I'll go to checkout. And now I get bounced over to the login screen. And now if I log in, now I can get to the check-in page, sorry, checkout page. So now we also have an issue with about the items in my cart. If I go back to my cart here, so notice now I'm logged in with this account, customer@gc.ca. If I go back to my cart, the items in my cart are still attached to this random string. Now that I'm logged in, I want to update the items in my cart to attach them to my user profile instead. That way, potentially, I can leave the site and come back, and those items are still attached to me. So we want a method in here. This can be a private method. Create a method called migrate. So if they've been shopping as an anonymous user and now they've logged in, we now know who they are. We have their email address. So we want to convert these username values to their identity. So that way we know who this person is and what they're buying. I could invent the logic, but I've already. Let's see. Okay. So if if our HTTP context.session, let's see, cart username is not equal to the user.identity. So this means they've shopped anonymously, put stuff in their cart, or this should be session.getString. So they've been shopping anonymously and now they're logged in. So that's this scenario here. I just shopped anonymously and now I've logged in. So if my cart username in the session is not equal to my email address, we want to find all the items in my cart and update the username for all of them. I want to find all the cart items and update the username to the user's email. I'm going to need a variable before I can finish this. I can't use this value in my query expression. I need to, it won't recognize the HTTP context object if I refer to it directly, and we're going to port it to a local variable. So we'll take it, read it out of the session, store it in a local variable, then we can use it in our link query. So this will give me a list of all the items in the user's cart that have this random string attached to them. So for each one of these, I'm going to update the username to the customer's email address. And then we'll commit the changes in one transaction. Then I want to update the session variable moving forward. So the session variable is a random string. I now want to change it to reflect the email address. So we want to, if the user's already been shopping, logged in, this method doesn't do anything, because the very first if statement on line 133, it says, oh, is the session variable the same as their email address? Yes, it is. So it just doesn't do anything. None of this code runs. We don't have to do anything. In this scenario, I'm already shopping while I'm logged in. my cart's already attached to my email address. Or I guess my email address is already attached to my cart. So this only is in the scenario that I shopped anonymously and now I've identified myself. So this method, we need to call it from inside our checkout. Before the user gets to the checkout page, before we load that form, we want to move any items to be attached with their email if they weren't already. So I'm going to call migrate cart first. We're going to check if the user has shopped anonymously. If so, attach their email to their cart now. So that's what the migrate function is going to do. So I'm going to log out, go through that process again of being an anonymous shopper, log in at checkout, and then if this method works correctly, my items should get updated from GUID to my email address. I'm actually just going to delete everything in the cart for now, just to clear it out. I'm going to log out. We'll try it. We may have to adjust it a little bit. I think it should work. If not, we're not too far off. So make sure you're shopping anonymously. So I'm going to I'll maybe put 2 items in my cart. I need a baseball bat. And I need a glove. So I'll get 1 of each. Now I'm going to go to checkout. I'm anonymous. So ASP.NET Identity is going to force me to log in. So here's what's in my cart right now. I've got 2 items with a random string as a username. Once I log in, it brings me to my checkout view. If I run my query again, I'll just do it in a new tab. So those old query results are there. So now my cart has been updated. So these items are now attached to my email address is now attached to my cart. So that means any records we see in the cart table without an email address, that's somebody has never logged in. Yes, there's George. Pretty exciting. So the other kind of neat thing is these items will persist. So if I go close my browser, I haven't checked out yet, but if I come back, I've killed my session. But if I want to restart it, that's not the right. So if I log out of the site now, I've restarted my browser. If I go to my cart page, it's going to say, oh, it restored my session. Whoops, okay. Sorry about that. I'll go to a private window. So if I go to my cart here, it's empty. But if I log in with my customer account and go back to my cart, well, we need to fix this. It should be finding the items. I'm logged in. There's items in the cart table that belong to me, but they didn't show up. So on our cart page, we got to adjust the logic just a little bit. Should show me my items. Let's see why. So on our cart page, here's why. It says, read the session variable. Well, if I'm in a private browser, that variable is empty. So we need to initialize this So what we should be doing is calling our getCart username every time. So instead of reading it from the session variable, we want to call the method we wrote. So this will check the session. If it's not in the session, it'll either generate a GUID or it'll use the user's ID. So we want to do this every time the user clicks the cart link. I think this will fix our issue. So this is the first line inside the cart method. I will try it again. So I'm going to go to cart. Actually, I guess I need to log out now. I need to start again in a private window. I'll go to my home page in a private window. I'm an anonymous user again. I have no session ID. If I go to my cart, it's empty. And hopefully when I log in now, now that I'm logged in, I can go back to my cart and our logic is still not quite right. What's going on? Let's figure it out. So we call cart. It calls our method. This should be null. Okay, I'm going to run this with my debugger. Let's see what's going on. Oh, I suspect I know why. So if we go to cart, calls our method, our variable is null. So the first time around, it says we're not authenticated. So it uses a GUID and stores that in our session variable. So then when I log in and come back here, then when I come back and log in, it calls the method again and it says, the session variable isn't null, so we don't need to set it. So this logic isn't exactly right. Okay. All right. We'll rewrite just a little bit. We'll just have to add a little more logic here. We'll initialize this to an empty string first. I know we're about due for a break. Our session variable is null. We'll write our session variable. This still isn't going to solve our problem, I don't think. So I hit the cart page as an anonymous user, and I log in and come back. The session variable's already been set. So it's not going to update. Sorry, I have to think through our logic here. This isn't quite right. The scenario we have, our cart username isn't null. Not the second time. It's null when I go to cart the first time, but then if I log in and go back, we've already set this. And we need to update it. Actually, the logic we need is in this method. If we have a session variable and that session variable is not equal to the user identity, we want to update the session variable to use their email. Okay, if it's not working now, I'm taking a break. to think it through. One more try. I'm going to run through this same scenario. So first, I'm anonymous. My cart should show as empty. And once I log in, it should show the items this user's already put in their cart previously. Okay, so there's nothing here. Now I log in. And once I log in, I want to go back to my cart and I want to see the items that I've added previously. Okay. It's working. Sorry about that. And now I could go and buy more stuff. I don't know if there is anything else in the database. So I can add a new item on to the items that were already put in my cart in a different session. Sorry, I know that was messy. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. Let's take a break. I will push to get.